Hello everyone, RJ from Vidhya Communication Enhancers is back again. Today I have one more interesting story, the button. A neuroscientist spent 30 years studying one question: why do some people become formidably while others with equal ability remain ordinary? He studied intelligence, talent, childhood, money, education, personality, none explained enough. Then he discovered something embarrassingly simple. Whenever human beings experienced discomfort, they search for a button, not a physical button, a psychological one. Bored, press. Confused, press. Lonely, press. Anxious, press. Difficult problem, press. No idea what to do next, press. The button could be anything: television, scrolling, games, food, gossip, anything capable of replacing an uncomfortable thought with an easier one. He called it the exit button. Then he ran an experiment. He recruited 200 ambitious young people, same age range, similar education, similar intelligence. He gave them difficult problems and secretly observed what happened when they become stuck. The results disturbed him. The important difference the results disturbed him. The important difference wasn't who solved the problem, it was what happened before the solution. Some participants become uncomfortable and immediately escaped. Phone, new tab, message, videos, walk around, anything. Other become uncomfortable and remain there. They started, wrote nonsense, tried something, failed, started again. Sometimes they accomplished absolutely nothing, but they stayed. The scientists followed both groups for 20 years. The difference became enormous, not because the second group never rested, they did. Not because they worked every walking hour, they didn't. The difference was simpler. They had stopped treating discomfort as an emergency. One participant interested him more than everyone else. His name was Dev. At 24, Dev belonged firmly to the first group. He was intelligent, ambitious, full of plans, and extraordinarily easy to distract. Free evening entertainment, heart problem entertainment, bad day entertainment, successful day, reward himself with it entertainment. There was always a person they wasn't choosing anymore. Different emotion simply led to the same destination. One evening, the scientist invited him into the laboratory. He placed a red button on the table. Press it. They pressed. A screen started playing his favorite show. He smiled. The scientist stopped him. Again, press. Entertainment. Again, press. Entertainment. Again, press. Entertainment. Then the scientist discontinued the screen. Press it. Dave did. Nothing happened. Again, nothing. Again, nothing. After several minutes, Dave became irritated. What is the point? The scientist said. Keep pressing. This is stupid. Keep pressing. Eventually, Dave stopped. The scientist asked, why did you stop? Because the button doesn't work. The scientist looked at him, interesting. What? When a physical button stops giving you a reward, you eventually stop pressing it. But you have spent years pressing psychological buttons long after they stop giving you anything. Dave said nothing. The scientist opened Dave's viewing history. Thousands of hours. What did you receive? Entertainment. Which episode changed your life? Silence. Which season made you stronger? Silence. Or which 100 hours do you desperately want to return because of how valuable their entertainment was? They become angry. People need relaxation. Of course. The scientist closed the history. I am not studying relaxation. I am studying escape. That word landed differently. The scientist placed a difficult problem before him. Work, Dave tried. 20, 23 minutes later, he became stuck. His hand automatically moved toward the phone. The scientist said, "Stop." Dave froze. What happened inside you just now? Nothing wrong. The scientist moved closer. You encountered uncertainty and your nervous system requested evacuation. Dave looked at his hand. The scientist continued. This is the moment I have spent 30 years studying. Not your morning routine, not your goals, not your motivational speech. This. He pointed at Dave's hand. The 2 seconds before discomfort and escape. Dave looked back at the problem. What's so important about 2 seconds? The scientist answered. The entire character fit inside them. Dave laughed nervously. The scientist didn't. Think about it. You don't decide to waste 4 hours. You decide to escape 4 seconds of discomfort. Then another decision follows, and another. Eventually, you call the result binge watching. But the binge wasn't the first failure. The first failure happened here. He touched the table the moment discomfort appeared, and you obeyed it without negotiation. The room became quiet. Dave looked at his phone differently. For years he had blamed entertainment. Now he saw something worse. The screen wasn't controlling him, it was serving him instantly, faithfully. Every time his mind said, "Get me out of here," the screen answered, "Come." The scientist took the phone and placed it beside the problem. Now become uncomfortable. They stared at him. What? Become confused, fail, feel stupid, want to leave, and then nothing. Nothing, stay. They worked 20 minutes, stuck. The urge come. Phone, he didn't touch it. The discomfort intensified. His mind began producing argument. You are tired. You are working enough. You will understand better tomorrow. Just check one thing. He stayed. 5 minutes, nothing. 10, nothing. Then something remarkable happened. Not a solution. The urge weakened. They looked at the scientist. It's disappearing. Yes, why? Because you didn't obey it. The sentence changed something. Dave had spent years believing urges were instructions. Now, for the first time, he experienced one as weather. It arrived, it intensified, it passed, and he remained. The scientist smiled again tomorrow. For months, Dave practiced one thing. Not productivity, not 12-hour workday, not sleep deprivation, remaining. When bored, remain for a moment before choosing what to do. When confused, remain. When anxious, remain. When the hand automatically reached for escape, remain. Sometime after remaining, he still watched something. That was fine because now it was a decision, not an evacuation. Years passed. Dave became exceptionally good at difficult work. People eventually asked about his discipline. He always rejected the word. I am not usually disciplined. Then what changed? Dave would place two fingers on the table, tap twice, 2 seconds. I reclaimed this. Nobody understood, so he explained. Most of my bad evening didn't begin when I started watching. They began several seconds earlier. A difficult feeling appeared, and I had trained myself to remove it immediately. I spent years trying to control the hour that followed. I should have been fighting for the second that come first. Then he would tell them the sentence the scientist had given him. When discomfort arrived, do not evacuate. Years later, they kept a small red button on his desk. It wasn't connected to anything. Whenever a problem became unbearable, whenever boredom demanded stimulation, whenever his hand automatically moved toward his phone, He touched the button and remembered, this is not an emergency. I do not have to escape. Then he stayed. Sometime for 2 minutes, sometime for 2 hours. Sometime he eventually stopped and rested, but the decision belonged to him again. And then, and that turned out to be the beginning of everything. For the pattern you described, I think the strongest line here is, I don't decide to waste 4 hours. I decide to escape 4 seconds of discomfort. So, when the automatic trigger hit, don't demand that you suddenly became productive for 3 hours. Within the first 10 seconds, put the screen down and say, this is not an emergency. I do not have to evacuate. Then choose deliberately work, think, walk, sleep, talk to someone, or intentionally watch something. The first objective is not eliminating entertainment, it is recovering the moment in which you choose what happens next. So, with this, we are ending today's story. Thanks for listening.